Mumbai at about 4:30 a.m. local time, and we've been traveling for about 18 hours. So Miss Harris and the chaperones told us we should start getting some sleep, but Blair and I were on some other time zone, and we couldn't fall asleep. So that whole first day, we'd been awake for like 36 hours total, which is ridiculous.
We went on a boat ride in the Arabian Sea, but we don't have any pictures or video of that because Gerard was wet again.
On the drive back, we saw a lot of slums, and the slums were basically everywhere. They were in Mumbai, they were around the airport, and it was a very sobering sight, so we just went back to the hostel and slept.
When we left Mumbai, that was our first intra-country flight.
We flew from Mumbai to Trivandrum and then drove to Nagarcoil.
Mumbai had been a little rough, and we thought we had been slightly negative, so Allison came up with the idea of 1 hour of no complaining as soon as we landed in Trivandrum. But on our way to our hotel in Nagarcoil, we saw the beautiful forest of palm trees and the blue ocean, and we realized that the 1 hour of no complaining was completely unnecessary.
After the bus ride, we arrived at our hotel, and we were supposed to have an informal meeting with the principal of the school that we're going to be working with for the next 3 days, but it was going to be another 45-minute bus ride, and we didn't really want to go, but it was a really good thing we did because it was unbelievable.
And they had like a stage and a welcome sign set up in various ways of spelling Atheans Academi.
We pulled up to the courtyard, and the whole town was there, and all the students, and they were like crowding on the bus, and as we got off, they wanted to shake our hands. They kept saying, "Hello, how are you?" And I think that's the only thing that they knew how to say in English. And so like they had a video crew, and it was just amazing, like the welcome. It was the best greeting. And so then we walked into the principal's office for a meeting with Father Borgia, who's the principal of the school, and he got us started.
After we met with Father Borgia, we made our way to the stage. We were mobbed by the little kids. They kept wanting to shake our hands, and they kept asking us, "Hello, how are you?" And for some of them, that's all they knew how to say.
The welcome was so overwhelming. I knew that we were going to be in for such a big treat in the next couple of days with these kids, and I just found everything really touching.
They did a variety of dances for us, including an Indian classical dance called Bharatanatyam and a bunch of other folk dances to South Indian songs. So when we first arrived in the morning at the school, all the 900 kids were in formation, and they had an opening ceremony prepared for us in which they read from 3 religious texts, including the Bhagavad Gita, the Bible, and the Quran. Then they performed some more dances as well as sang songs for us.
And after the ceremony, we got to just hang out in the classrooms and talk to the kids.
When we went to visit all of the classes, we visited classes in all parts of the school. The kids there were so talented. I guess they naturally assumed that we were just as talented. So after they sang and danced for us, they wanted us to reciprocate. So we did. The only dance we all knew was the Macarena, so we did it for them, and we didn't do it so well.
The first class that I went to was a 9th grade English class, and they were learning English grammar. and I was amazed at how much grammar they knew. They knew more than me.
After our first classroom visit, we went to a beach house that was about a half-mile away. At the house, we could see high water marks where the tsunami had flooded the entire second floor 9 feet high into the walls. After the beach house, we went back to the school and we got to see some afternoon classes, including their incredible PE class.
When you hear jingle bells, do you think of PE? Well, St. Jude's School does. Surprisingly enough, the PE coach looked exactly like Coach Chuboff, mustache and all.
While some of us were watching PE, the rest of the group was teaching some students and even a couple of the teachers how to work the computers they had received after the tsunami.
Unfortunately, there wasn't too much we could show them. They knew how to use Microsoft Paint and Word and Solitaire, but because they didn't have any internet access and there were only 10 computers for a school of 1,000 students, there wasn't too much they could do to use the computers in their classroom. They only had one printer, and so the use was very limited.
The next day, the kids they had an art contest where they drew beautiful pictures on the ground with chalk. This form of art is known as rangoli, and rangoli originated from when housewives would put rice on the ground for insects and other organisms to eat because they believed that everything should be able to eat. It was their form of generosity to nature.
To start the rangoli, the littler kids would draw grids, and they would essentially connect the dots to create shapes. It was pretty awesome watching them do it because you never expected so many, gorgeous pictures to come out of it. And on top of all of that, they had to color in their outlines, and they didn't use chalk, they used colored sand. So that was pretty amazing watching them do it.
At the end of the art competition, Father Borgia came around to us and asked us which rangoli we liked the best. Whether we knew it or not, we were actually judging the art competition, because the one we ended up saying we liked the best, even though it was really hard to choose, it was the one that ended up winning. What made it tragic, though, is that by the end of the next day, every last trace of them was gone, because they were all made of chalk.
It was that day that Allison and I stumbled upon the 11th grade economics class where we met some beautiful young girls. They gave us flowers to put in our hair and bangles to wear around for the rest of the day. And it was actually at that time when one of the little girls asked me if I had any family members affected by Katrina. And that was just really touching to me because they who were so devastated by the tsunami were so worried about our tragedy in America.
After a few more classroom visits, Father Borgia took us on our own private field trip to the southern tip of India.
Located at the southernmost tip of India is the district of Kanyakumari, which is also known as Cape Comorin. Past the tip of the cape are two islands, one of which houses the temple at Vivekananda, and the other of which houses a giant statue of the poet Thiruvalluvar.
That morning we went back to the school where they performed another hour-long ceremony. They'd been doing these ceremonies with dances and songs every day that we had been there, and today they actually asked us to perform for them. Cerulli sang a song, we gave a history of Atheans Academi and the United States, and we had to do a few dances for them too, which we had frantically organized in our hotel room the night before. But they did a few more dances for us, fortunately, and the boys' volleyball team actually did some impressive acrobatics for us.
performances, they gave us several gifts, such as golden peacocks and shawls. And then afterwards, it was very hard to say goodbye.
As the bus started pulling away, I looked out the window and saw that this little girl that I had gotten to know really well, who had taught me some words in Tamil, actually was holding up something in her hand, and I could see it was like a little piece of paper, and so I realized that she wanted to give it to me, but the bus was already pulling away, and so she started running after it, and I reached my hand out of the window, and she put a little crumpled piece of paper in my hand, and then we said bye. And after the bus left, I looked at the piece of paper, and it said, "My dear friend Sarili," from Anusha Shireen, and it had a little picture of her that she'd cut out and put into it for me to remember her forever. This kind of generosity was not uncommon in all the kids that we met there at St. Jude's, and it kind of got us thinking about what we could do next.
We knew they had books and computers, and we brought them a laptop this trip, but they had nowhere they could really use them.
It was during our visit that we noticed an unfinished area on the 3rd floor of the school. We planned to raise money to build a media center where the students could check out books in an environment that would keep the books clean from the elements of India, and also to connect the media center to the internet, which would open their classrooms to the outside world. Day 8. We went to the sari shop.
At the sari shop, there were shelves loaded with thousands of different colored silks.
Each of the girls got one and sometimes two of these beautiful silk saris that you see us wearing right now. We got them for about $25 American each.
After we left the beach, we flew to New Delhi, which is the capital of India.
Captain Gill got us all tickets to go see a session of Parliament.
Well, Parliament had a couple of undercover agents, and we didn't know this actually. They didn't tell many of us, but you weren't allowed to cross your legs in Parliament because it was, I guess, rude. But the undercover agents would smack you on the leg pretty hard if you forgot the rule.
The debate in Parliament was lively. There are like 25 different languages in India, and they were shouting in, I think, all 25 of them.
I'm pretty sure they banned Coke in Kerala while we were at Parliament.
After Parliament, we actually had the great honor of meeting with the President of India. We received this invitation from a friend of Dr. Matthew. Before this trip, I didn't really understand what a great honor this truly was. Gerard explained it to me this way. President Bush is the president of 300 million people. Dr. Abdul Kalam is the president of 1 billion people. It's also important to remember that there's 2 highlights on this trip. 1, meeting the great kids of Pallam, and 2, meeting the President of India.
We ran down a half-a-mile-long hallway in an 8.5 million cubic foot palace to go meet the President of India.
After we sat down, he told us a little bit about himself. He wrote a book called India 2020, in which he laid out his goals for India by the year 2020. His biggest goal, though, is to see 1 billion people smile. After he described all this to us, we got to ask him questions.
Before we left, the President had us recite this mantra. When there is righteousness in your heart, there is beauty in your character. When there is beauty in your character, there is harmony in your home. When there is harmony in your home, there is order in the nation. When there is order in the nation, there is peace in the world. I think throughout the entire meeting, it just sort of came to us all how amazing and how inspirational of a leader that he actually is.
We woke up early again, only this time we actually made our train. We rode on the train all the way to Agra, which is where the Taj Mahal, the Red Fort, and King Akbar's palace are all located very close together.
जब हम रोज मिलते थे दिलों में और निगाहों में हमारी सारी राहों में मोहब्बत और खुशी के प्यारे प्यारे फूल खिलते थे। मुझे याद आते हैं वो दिन कि जब हम रोज मिलते थे। याद आते हैं वो दिन के जब हम रोज मिलते थे। दिलों में और निगाहों में हमारी सारी राहों में मोहब्बत और खुशी के प्यारे प्यारे फूल खिलते थे। मुझे याद आते हैं वो दिन के जब हम रोज मिलते थे। कभी हम गुनगुनाते थे, कभी हम मुस्कुराते थे, कभी हम खो से जाते थे। मुझे याद आते हैं वो दिन के जब हम रोज मिलते थे।
As we were on the plane, we were all talking about what our favorite parts of the trip were.